So we often do lists, and I've done it a couple of times over the last couple of months, of veteran players that could be on the move at some point during the season. On today's episode, I want to actually take a look at a list presented by Bleacher Report at players under 25 who need a trade. We're going to talk a little bit about that, plus more updates to Jonathan Kuminga's situation and the Miami Heat's willingness to trade Terry Rozier. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, Hayes. More importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And so I want to start off with Bleacher Report's list of players under 25 that already need a change of scenery, basically, right? And this is a nice mix of players that have different situations going on, but one other thought is common here is that they may need a change of scenery. So let's start off with the top. At number one, they have Ousmane Dieng here with the OKC Thunder. And this is a player that, when you look at how good the 2022 draft was for the OKC Thunder, right? Chet, Jalen Williams, they got both of those players in that draft. But then the Thunder also moved up in that draft and sent multiple picks to get Ousmane Deng in that draft. They dealt 3 protected future first-round picks to take him 11th overall in that draft. And at the 58 players that were drafted in that draft, Osman Deng has played 1,339 career minutes, which is 36th overall in that time. Now, injuries have played a part in Ousmane Deng and his career not necessarily going the way that it is, but let's keep in mind, he was one of the younger players in that draft, and he still has tons of upside and room left to grow. And when you look at the position that he plays, where the Thunder currently sit at in that position base as well, it really does look like Deng is just not going to be a player that is going to get any type of meaningful minutes there, and is probably not part of the plan of the OKC Thunder. Now, one could say also, I want to be clear here, that the Thunder are going to hold on to cost-effective players, but when you have the Thunder who have as many draft picks coming up each of the years like they do, with already being a championship team, not just contending anymore, you have to ask yourself, is there a spot anymore left for Deng? A player that can play the 4 or the 5. You look at the number of players that are going to be ahead of him at that 4 position, and then turn around at the 5 position as well, especially with Thomas Sorber just being drafted there also. Osman Deng, who's still only 22 years old, 6'9", and has some modern 4 type things. I just don't know if he's going to be one of those players that ends up working out for the Thunder. And, a team could absolutely take a shot on him. He started 2 games at all over his career. He's played in 109, only averaged 12 minutes per game. And this is a guy that a team could look and convince themselves has some needed upside and may want to take a look at him, while he's still on his rookie scale deal before he goes out there. Now, so a team could also wait till he hits free agency, because I just don't know if the Thunder are going to end up keeping him long term. But Ousmane Deng is definitely a player that deserves to be on this list, and one that I understand. Now, he hasn't really forced the issue either, and been a player that has commanded time, and that goes to say something as well for people who want to take that perspective on it. But we'll end up seeing the next player, Jaden Hardy, they have listed as number 2 on their list with the Dallas Mavericks. Now, this is a guy that I actually was very, very high on in this draft. I know a lot of you guys probably didn't see that draft coverage because this channel really just started popping off, even though I've been dropping videos inconsistently for a while. A shameless thing there. But you look at Jaden, you look at him and what the potential of him coming into this league, what he could have been as a scorer and things like that. And Jaden Hardy just hasn't gotten a lot of opportunity to live up to that. A little bit undersized at 6'3", and he's more of a scoring guard than a point guard, which, that already has its difficult path in the NBA. But then when you look at it, for example, like he's almost career 39% shooter from 3-point range, not only taking 3 of them per game, but it does show that some of that shooting capability that we knew was there for him is still there a little bit, right? And this is a guy that's only averaged 14 minutes per game across his career. And when you look at the state that the Dallas Mavericks are in right now, right? Like, yes, you have young players like Cooper Flagg, and maybe you want to keep a young guy like Jaden Hardy on your team because, hey, yeah, he hasn't played much for you yet, but you may be forced to call on him soon. He's 23 years old, right? But then when you look at where this team is, right, you got Klay Thompson that's going to play ahead of him, D'Angelo Russell that's going to play ahead of him at either of those guard spots, and that's even before Kyrie Irving comes back. Max Christie is another guy that's probably going to play ahead of him, right? No doubt about that there. And so it now shapes into this spot where there's just not a spot for Jaden Hardy really in this team unless he comes in training camp and drastically outplays the competition in front of him, which he hasn't done in 3 years, so why think he's going to do it now? I don't know if it's a mix between Jason Kidd just moving on from Hardy or anything else, but this is just a kid that had a lot of scoring upside coming into this league that just hasn't really gotten a whole lot of opportunity to show it. When you look at the raw shooting numbers, they're actually really decent, and they do. You can look at that as a player that could show you more by the time that it's done on it, but we'll see, man. The question is that when you look at where the Mavericks have been over the last few years, even before the Luka trade, they were a team that was very much so in the championship or bust area. And because of that, did they not want to take a chance on a player like Hardy and give him a lot of opportunities? He's played a little over 2,600 minutes in his NBA career combined. And this is just a guy that I do think is capable of more. He's better as an off guard. I do think that, not a point guard. But I think when you look around the league, you see a lot of players that, whether it's a bench scoring role, I'm not saying that he needs to be a starter, but that shooting ability that he shows there has gotten players opportunities and roles before. I think even being undersized, he's definitely a guy that could, shape out to show more if he gets more opportunity. So Jaden Hardy, I definitely agree with being on this list. And he's this guy that definitely, I think, has room to step up quite considerably. The next guy, we're going to go to the Orlando Magic, and that is Jet Howard, who was picked 11th overall. I believe he was picked with my team's pick in the Chicago Bulls. 6'6", 215 pounds, only 21 years old. He's going into his third year in this league, and this is now a guy that you look at and you say, hasn't gotten a lot of opportunity to show a lot, so that is there, right? But this is the guy that just doesn't have a lot of spacing on that team. The three-point shooting with the Orlando Magic is not good when it comes down to it, so that has already put them in a spot offensively where they aren't really adherent when it comes down to that as well. He's a guy that hasn't shot the ball well from three, hasn't shot the ball well from the field at all. 37% career field goal shooter at being the 11th overall pick at still 21 years old, though. He's a guy that with the size that he has and the positional versatility who can play the two or the three, I do think he's a guy that I can understand being on this list. I personally can't say that I've seen anything from Jet Howard that says that he necessarily deserves a whole lot of opportunity. I agreed with the last two. These two, I'm just kind of like, I just don't know. But then again, he's only played 768 career minutes, which is 34th amongst the 2023 draftees when it comes to that. And so maybe this is a guy that, in a different situation can maybe earn a little bit more of a role when it comes down to it. In seeing what I've seen from Jet Howard, he just looks like a guy that maybe wasn't worth the lottery pick, but we've seen those former lottery picks that may start off a little bit disappointing under a different situation, start kind of waking up some, and maybe that's the case. The next guy on the list is a guy that I'm going to agree with. He needs all the opportunity, and that's G.G. Jackson. Now, most people know what G.G. Jackson did his rookie year in Memphis. Like he definitely earned himself, to be in that rotation at that point. And the sky seemed like it was the limit at that point for G.G. Jackson. But then between injuries, the change of where the franchise is, it really did change some things for G.G. Jackson. He's still only 20 years old, heading into his third year in the NBA. He doesn't turn 21 into December. You look at his rookie numbers, 14 points per game on 42% shooting from the field, 35% shooting from three, taking 6 3-pointers per game. He took 11 shots per game his rookie year. His second year, only 29 games played. He averaged 15 minutes versus the 25 he averaged in his rookie year, and 37% shooting from the field. His shots per game were basically cut in half, 33% from three, and he averaged 7.2 minutes. Now, points per game. But again, when you look at what it comes down to with him, it's still the injuries, I think, are a big thing that derailed him. And this Memphis Grizzlies team, I think, could very well find themselves circling back around and getting him more opportunity when it comes into this upcoming season for them. But then when you look at it as well, what the Grizzlies did, you got a guy like Cedric Howard in here who's going to step into that Desmond Bane role, right? You got that there. So it doesn't necessarily look like it's going to be a lot of opportunity there for you. Even if you wanted to play the 3 or the 4, you got Jalen Williams, Vince Williams there. Santi Aldama can play a little bit of 3. He's going to play the backup 4 as well. So it's like as this team has kind of moved on and moved forward, the opportunities and the positions that GG Jackson could play have gotten lessened and lessened. And so would they look to move him? Now, I do think with what he did his rookie year, I know the second year wasn't great, that the Grizzlies could get a nice pick back for GG Jackson for a team that kind of wants a more proven thing if they are very convinced what he did his rookie year can get him more to, or is more inclined with what you can get out of him going forward with more minutes, more opportunity. So I can see a team convincing themselves, especially a team that maybe is a little bit more risk adverse, right? Or open to more risk and taking on a player that, has still that upside there. So we'll see. Now, I think that out of all the players on this list, I think the Grizzlies and GG Jackson situation is the most salvageable. I do think they can find a spot and minutes for GG Jackson. It's going to be very important that he comes into training camp firing on all cylinders. The last player on this list is a player that I am very well familiar with, and that is Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams, for Chicago Bulls fans, has been such a polarizing topic. Drafted 4th overall in what was projected to be a weak draft, but then you look at some of the players that went after him, Maxey, Halliburton, right? Some of the players that just went after him in that draft, Devin Vassell, right? That have been much better than Patrick Williams. And I think now what the Bulls have been doing, despite giving him a 5-year, $90 million contract just last offseason, you have Modest Buzelis, who's in front of him. You have now Noah Essengue, who may not be in front of him now, but the thought process is he's going to be the long-term starting forward next to Modest Buzelis as the other forward. And so now Patrick Williams finds himself in a situation where this past offseason, the Chicago Bulls reportedly said that it's all on P. Will, that they are no longer investing a lot into P. Will. It's going to be all on him to find his path and to fight and compete for minutes here. Now, 23 years old. He's a career 39% shooter from three. He was a versatile defender. Last year saw the first big slide from him defensively, but he did come into the season with a foot injury, so maybe there's something that could still be there. Patrick Williams is a guy that can fit a 3-and-D role. Now, the question is, I don't doubt that a new situation and scenario can help him. The question is, how do you get him there? Because at his contract at roughly $18 million per year, while that's not a crazy contract in the NBA, I just don't know with the 4 years left on it, if teams are going to be there to try to get him, right, while he's on that type of contract without sending some very bad money back to Chicago, which I don't know if they're willing to accept. So while I do think that Patrick Williams would absolutely benefit from going to a new situation, the bigger question is that situation going to even materialize because of the contract that he's on? This goes back to the Bulls. Probably should have looked to move him while he was still on his rookie scale deal or as a restricted free agent in the sign and trade before now. But I do agree, a new scenario for Patrick Williams is probably the best. I just don't know if one's coming for him, which raises its own question. But you guys can let me know how you feel on that down below. Out of those 5 players, though, let me know which one do you think would benefit most out of going to a new scenario? Which one do you think could actually benefit by staying on the team that they're currently at? Love to hear from you guys on that one. Let's move on. Jonathan Kuminga reportedly got a $90 million contract offer when it came down to it. And this one came from the Phoenix Suns. This came from Shams. Now, here's the thing. I think that is kind of more in the range of what Jonathan Kuminga would want. Now, I don't know if the sign and trade scenarios that are out there have been as enticing for the Golden State Warriors, which have left them not to do any deal, which is a bad enough thing when it comes down to it, right? The Warriors reportedly, according to Shams, are holding out for an unprotected first-round pick. Mark J. Spears also said that the Suns' offer included Royce O'Neal and Nick Richards, which I look at that with the Golden State Warriors and say, I get that you want an unprotected first, but Nick Richards as a defensive big kind of brings exactly some of the things that you want while not getting in the way of Quentin Post potentially. And they offered 4 second-round picks, and you turn that down? So the Golden State Warriors seem to be sticking to their asking price of that unprotected first-round pick. I just don't know if that's going to happen here. This Jonathan Kuminga thing is one of the more interesting scenarios to watch for these restricted free agents because he just seems like, I'm not accepting this deal, and I'm fine just waiting this out. And I just don't know where that's going to go at all when it all comes down to it. But you guys can let me know how you feel on that one down below. Last topic before we get out of here. The Heat are reportedly open to moving Terry Rozier before the season. And that's according to Anthony Shang from the Miami Herald. Now, here's the thing. I'm not surprised with that. Does seem like they were engrossed in trade talks for Marcus Smart, who ended up going elsewhere when it comes down to it. I don't know if that would have really changed anything for the direction of the Miami Heat. But Terry Rozier, if they can find a trade partner for Terry Rozier, that is a decent-sized contract where you can get something back. but I just think that ultimately he's going to end up staying there, right? Now, Terry Rozier himself has said that his style of play hasn't been the best fit for the Miami Heat and what they want him to do. And so if a team is interested in Terry Rozier, I do think that, you have to kind of think what he fits in with your system. Now, I don't think that the Miami Heat are going to find a trade partner for him before the start of the season, but this is something to kind of monitor and watch out for as the season goes on. But that's my time for today. That's a quick update. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. Catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.